It is school resumption and many kids are heading back to classes after the Yuletide period. One common denominator among most of the Port Harcourt parents who spoke with Arise News is that they want governments at all levels to subsidize education so as to enable the children of the poor have access to it.
Some parents are finding it difficult to, turn up in terms of a school fee. It's telling on everybody. Our earnest expectation is that they will still do what they have to do because education is a priority to them and their children.
The children won't understand if you try to explain to them about the harsh economic conditions, they won't understand. So as parents, our duty is to try our best to make sure we train our children properly.
We just want to plead with the government to help schools and growing businesses to help us out with things that can cushion the effect of the hike in prices of things in Nigeria.
Isaac Nkem Uwaduno is an academic and educationist.
Our national plan for education can really not sustain development in this modern age. Most of the plans for education were actually developed, early 60s, early 70s, 80s. From 1990 to date, what we just see is we are just rebuilding on that. Our curriculum can actually not, manage the system the way it ought to. What we find is that we find a situation where we keep retweaking and tweaking the curriculum. But the curriculum conference has not held over a long time.
The parents explained their call for education subsidy.
We say education for all. The only way education can be for all is when it is free. So we should not even be talking about subsidization. We should be talking about free, that this should be free.
I don't really want the government of the day to have a total free education for Nigerian people so that they will not abuse it. However, there could be some subsidy, there could be some enhancement, there could be some aids government could give to parents to help them help their children.
Despite the high school fee being charged, some parents are worried by the falling standards of education.
The education in Nigeria actually took a nosedive under the civilian government of Shehu Shagari. And from that time till date, every effort we have made to revive the educational sector has actually met brick walls. For instance, the United Nations actually said for schools to move forward in Africa, at least 26% of the national budget should be tied to education. I don't just want to go into it. How many percentage of our budget this year is tied to education? These are the things that determine standards.
What should be done is very simple. There should be a kind of upgrade on the kind of facilities we have, learning facilities. Somebody in modern society cannot learn on that tree and you expect him to come out first class. Some schools, as we talk, even in River State, students don't have chairs to sit in school. So how do you think they can cope with the modern trends?
Meanwhile, both the federal and state governments have been challenged to give priority to the welfare of both academic and non-academic staff in both primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions in order to stem the tide of brain drain identified as one of the major reasons for the falling standards of education in the country. From Port Harcourt, the River State capital, Andy Omanu, Arise News.
The cost of living in Nigeria has forced some parents to keep their words back home as schools across the country resume for the second term. One of the parents, while lamenting the rising cost of living in the country, said he could not afford to bring his children to school because there is no adequate resources for their resumption. Some teachers describe the turnout of students as encouraging as they prepare to impart knowledge.
School yesterday, but unfortunately the situation, the high cost of the living now is getting higher. When you look at, for example, if you are a salary earner, they give you salary, the salary cannot sustain you today. There are so much problems. Government has to look up all these things and sympathize with us so that we can earn our living. For me, I didn't send my children to school now.
Even today, we received about 70% of students came to school today. A lot are still coming. I think this week we'll be able to see all of them who should be in school this week.
Today, the turnout is still increased, whereby it's up to 80, and teachers have started their lesson, and lesson is going accordingly.